I'm Steve Spindler, and I'm going to focus a lot on the North, like New York area, a little bit in Connecticut in my talk today about using MAPublisher. And 2020 was a big year for me, I think, because data is changing. The use of OpenStreetMap data in combination with MAPublisher has been really great. I use QGIS as part of my workflow as well. And I think that the symbiosis between MAPublisher and GIS is fantastic. And I have clients who are really competent. This is a client in Ithaca, New York. My daughter and I were just starting our bicycle ride to Niagara Falls last June. And sometimes my clients will expose me to less conventional meetings. This is much better than a Zoom meeting in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. And my clients have this past year reached out and been very generous, and our meetings have taken place at places like a lake house or over lunch. More recently, I've been making my own maps, but this is for a client. And I just made it, he said, don't spend much time on it. And I just did it for lunch one day. So this is a bicycle ride from Owego to Ann Arbor, Michigan. But they're different kinds of maps. And this is just to kind of help him get his friends involved in the bike ride. And this trail map, they printed about 10,000 copies or 20,000 copies. I don't remember quite. I think it was 10,000 copies. And the process of making a map is often about developing a constituency. And it's not just about the end map. So this was in Manchester, Connecticut, the Charter Oak Greenway, which is part of the East Coast Greenway. And the East Coast Greenway runs from Calais, Maine to Key West, Florida. This gets back to Ithaca, and a lot of times the maps are oriented towards getting the public engaged, to familiarized with where the better streets are to bike or where they might go for fun. And then similarly, the backside of this map has suitability analysis combined with little chevrons on the map to show the hills. So I'm moving on to the edits now. And this past year I redid the maps to Cycling the Erie Canal for Parks and Trails New York. And rather than edit maps that I had done several years before, maybe like 2011, I decided I'd just start from scratch. So I mocked up a single file, Illustrator file, with going across the state of New York from Albany to Niagara Falls and Buffalo. And I did all of my framing here so that so I could just export those frames. I should have had the root on here as well, but I exported this using Google Earth, using the map export from map views. And I imported that KML export into studio.mapbox.com. And then I could use text to label each panel and basically provide my client that I'm working with, or that I was working with, a new view of how all of these panels would fit together. And the panel locations had changed from the previous version. So starting with this, before I deal with lots of data, really saves time. And the question, why start from scratch? When I said I started from scratch, I was starting over. But what I was doing is building a process. And ultimately, I don't really want to start from scratch. I want to start with a template. So I might do new from template. And I've created a map template that I can use for many different kinds of maps. Or I might have these libraries with labeling or Not shown here is the scale bar. And then I can create new documents and just copy objects and queries and those kinds of things from the copy map objects from an existing file. So that saves me tons of time as well. So I love master files and I love templates. And here you can see how I placed text and basically created most of probably 80% of the map before I exported it to individual files. And this is what an individual file would be. And if it was rotated, I had that file set up with the rotation from the start. And from here I could edit the map. Along with this, I had symbols that changed over the course of the project. So that did involve opening up 40 files or so and basically copying the symbol and then using the replace symbol. But I could get through that fairly quickly if that was needed. So one of my things that I really have a hard time with is lists. Going from text on a page like a Word document into a map for me is very difficult. I just can't, I might have 11 edits and it'll take me a day and a half. I just struggle to figure out, well, where are they referring to? So if I get this, what I really need is for us to get on the telephone and share my screen and we make the edits together. Sometimes I send maps using Dropbox, and I don't necessarily intend for people to comment on those maps, but sometimes they do. And this is not an easy way to get edits, so I often will discourage this. Now this is much better. Further along in the project, when I set up this project, I set up all the maps and all the pages in InDesign. So I could go through and make sure everything was organized. And then if there were comments, I would just click a file and I can see on the map where the issue is. And this is in Adobe Acrobat. So with the right client, this works great. But when you have a committee, you want the committee to actually put stuff on your map. And I just want to show this process. So I use MAPublisher export to export web map tiles. And these are raster map tiles, which are a little different from vector, but they work fine. And then I place those map tiles into Wikimapping, which is a website I developed, and I get comments. From there, I can export the comments and use the map import in MAPublisher to bring them back into my Illustrator document. Okay, so MAPublisher, this shows the export to web map tiles. And you can see that I have a web Mercator. You have to use web Mercator in order for this to work. And then I set the dataset name, and I just exported this to my desktop. So you can export, I use OpenStreetMap generally, and then this maximum zoom, I think level 16 for this map was adequate. When you go higher, you can go up to 21, but it takes longer to export. And what you get is a bunch of files, 7, 8, 9. These are all the zoom levels that you would see like on a Google map. And this is a map tile for zoom level 12. And these relate to what people will see on the web. And this is, I've imported that into Wikimapping, but right now we're looking at an aerial image, satellite image. Let me just hit play and we'll look at the draft map. So I had this map that was map tiles from MAPublisher, and I put it into Wikimapping, and then I can let people add comments. So I probably got about 50 comments this way for this map. And it's just, once that's done, you could see, you can have different layers. So I did the demo, and this was a newer version of the map with those same comments. So you can have multiple base maps, whichever's easiest for your clients. Then I just export it, and I usually export as either a KML or a shapefile. Shapefile just has fewer fields. And then I import that into my document. And you can see all of the selected round MAPublisher icons and the associated map attributes. So I could just click on one and look at one attribute at a time. It's a great way to, for me, it's a huge time saver, and it's the whole reason that I thought to make wiki mapping in the first place. So mymaps.google.com or google.com/mymaps is great as well for the right people. I often use it for myself if I'm just planning, and I can add points and then export those as a KML and import them into MAPublisher. And now I want to go over missing data. This was a trail in New York, by the way. So after making this map of the Erie Canal, I decided the Erie Canal goes here. And Avenza is in Toronto here. And I was thinking, well, what if I went from my house up to Toronto, and we went up to Montreal and maybe Quebec City and back down? And it's just, maps motivate me to get out on my bike. And my original reason for making maps was so that I could encourage other people to get on their bikes, but it actually works for myself too. But say this area right here, say we want to import some data. Right here we have GeoFabric, and this is a great source of OpenStreetMap data by jurisdiction. So here's Ontario, and so we can click on the shapefile, zip file, and it's about 1.2 gigabytes. So I downloaded it and import the shapefile. And this is my favorite thing that I started using last year. It's the using default filtering options. This filtering options, spatial filter, lets me choose exactly what data area I want to show. So we'll go with focal area, which is a map view that I set. And then we can select which data we want. So in this case, I'll use only the F-class and name attributes. Close that. And then I'll select, make sure that F-class equals water, because maybe I don't want the wetlands, because wetlands is part of the same layer. And then I'll just click OK, and click OK, and OK, and OK, and import that data. I did speed it up slightly into that area. So anything that intersected with that map view loaded. So I think it's really awesome. This next thing that I want to show you, I just discovered so recently. It's kind of amazing that we use a program and fail to actually realize what that program can do. But this map service import allows me to import OpenStreetMap data actually as a raster image, but it's a great reference. So I can just click here. It's so easy. I select the area that I want and the select. So I use my map views to do that. And then I can also, make the image size more detailed with the pixels, and just hit OK and import that. And it's just a good reference. I haven't needed it that much, but to know that you can actually bring OpenStreetMap data as a raster image directly onto your map. Say I want to know where some major cities are, I can just type them in or know to look for them. So just wanted to share that. I'm really excited about this. The next thing is screen sharing. And screen sharing with MAPublisher and Illustrator is great because I can just listen to somebody and take the information that they're giving me and respond, and maybe they like a map that looks a certain way, so I can leave it at that. I'm not going back and forth wondering, well, my client liked this, how will they feel about this, because I'm getting instant feedback. And I use join.me, but I also use Zoom, and these are great ways to get feedback. So finally, like I was saying, these maps that I make inspire me to, I make maps of things that I like, and it causes me to go on trips and take action. And here's my daughter when we did our bike trip to Niagara Falls. And it's really bizarre because just as I was working on this, now I'll be doing this map going from up the Hudson River Valley, another bike map that's kind of like the Erie Canal map. And this was a trip that I was planning out anyway, to go from my house up to Quebec City and over to Toronto and back, which is about 1,500 miles. But maybe I'll do a little piece of it. And now that I've shown you about editing, I'll get back to editing this street map that has thousands of words on it. And if you have questions, you can contact me. My website is stevespindler.com, and I love talking about MAPublisher, so feel free to get in touch. Thanks a lot.